Welcome to the show. Matt Miller with you. 100 episodes today. Well, it's been a 5-year journey, but there have been more ups than downs, and I've enjoyed the places and the people that I've gotten to meet through the Trekzone spotlight over the last 100 episodes and 5 years. Take a look back now at some of my highlights. From my very first chat 5 years ago when I looked like this with Rod Roddenberry and Doug Drexler. The first convention I went to film at, Supernova in Perth with Anthony Montgomery. We flash forward, Larry Nemenchek's been on the show, and we can't forget Australia's first astronaut, Dr. Andy Thomas. Liam Keeley and I spent 2.5 weeks in the Blue Mountains learning about a Renaissance fair almost, as well as heading into the nation's capital of Canberra to learn about science at the Australian National University and at the Tidbinbilla tracking station.
We're one of only 3 stations in the world that has this important task, and that's to provide all the communications to all the dozens of spacecraft that are out there, exploring the solar system, visiting planets, moons, asteroids, comets.
One of the highlights from all of the cons that I've covered in 5 years has to be meeting the 3 greatest names in television, Mr. Richard Dean Anderson. Moving on to another Star franchise. It had a big iris.
Star fries.
Stargate, of course, is what I'm talking about.
Stargate.
It was a movie, then became a hit on TV. Did you see the movie before taking on the role that was sort of made famous by Kurt Russell?
I had not seen the movie until I got a call from John Symes, who worked at Paramount when I was doing MacGyver. And he had since changed jobs and was working at MGM. And he called me up directly and just said, Ricky, I want you to do this role. I want you to do this. We're making a series out of the movie. And he said, I know you don't want to work now, you're being a lazy bastard, but I want you to come to work for me. And he said, I'll send you a copy of the movie, but you give it a look, and then I want you to do it. I said, well, thanks for the options. I was flattered that no audition was involved. He had pretty much seen my work and knew what I was capable of. And so I looked at the movie and saw great potential for it to be a franchise. If it didn't have the Stargate itself, the greatest on-camera prop that's ever been developed, if it didn't have that, I think it would have been, it wouldn't have been Stargate, let's be honest. So I called him back and I said, yeah, I'm in, let's do this.
Joe Flanagan on Sci-Fi's fan base. And that's sort of been what everyone that I've interviewed that's been an actor on a sci-fi series has said. It's all just about playing and getting paid to do it and having fun.
Yeah, well, you know, there is a tremendous amount of work involved. I mean, don't be fooled. You're on set for 12 to 15 hours a day easily. And so you clock some serious hours. But if you're with a good group of people, it's a lot of fun. And if the material is interesting, it's great. And then you get this fan base that you can't beat. You know, you can't beat a sci-fi fan base.
Tori Higginson enjoying me gushing over Richard Dean Anderson.
The 3 greatest names in television.
Richard Dean Anderson.
Aw, look at you.
We're still waiting for his appearance on the website.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, he'll next time he comes through, I'm sure he'll do it. I love him. He's a very irreverent and warm earthling. I like him very much. But I was very nervous, and I actually hadn't watched a lot of SG-1, but I knew him from MacGyver. So our first scenes together, I was kind of nervous and shy around him. I'll get it.
Phone's going off in the media room, but that's okay, that's okay.
So I was really nervous in front of him, but he's just adorable and just wonderful. And he's very, very cheeky. And I always tell this story about how, because I was brought up in Britain, and well, not brought up in Britain, but my parents are British, and I had a lot of that influence. I use the word bugger, in a way that Americans don't use the word bugger. Yes, yep. And I was nervous, and I dropped a line, and I was so embarrassed, and I went, oh, bugger me, and he didn't miss a beat. He grabbed me, threw me against the wall, looked at the camera, said, still rolling? My face was so red for like a week. I'm like, oh my God, that was embarrassing. But he's very lovely.
Of course, the Trekzone spotlight has also broken the news over the last 5 years. One of the biggest ones was James Cawley joining us to discuss his original series set tour and the Fan Film Academy.
So, James, tell us how this idea came to be.
Well, years ago when we were doing New Voyages fan films, several of us, you included, we used to talk about what it would be like if we could, get a license to do things, or could we do a film school or a film summer camp for Star Trek people? So it started way back then, and I just kind of put it aside. And then, of course, we licensed the Star Trek tour. And one of the things that I wanted to hopefully accomplish with the tour was what they used to do at Universal Studios. I wanted to be able to have these little video postcards where the fans could come in, sit on the bridge and do a couple of lines and get a couple of special effects and take that home. And so I pitched that to CBS, and they had some discussions, and lo and behold, a short time ago came back, and we came up with this bigger plan to make it this way, more of a film school, a Star Trek Film Academy.
And the Star Trek fan films, can't forget them. Gary O'Brien, Gary Davis, Vance Major Owen, and of course Australia's own Aaron Vanderklein. What I thought was going to be a one-off guest turned out to be a regular appearance from the young Perth filmmaker. I got to visit his sets a few months ago, which is absolutely fantastic to see what can be done in such a limited space. And he's given me inspiration for next year's fan films here on Trekzone. Vic Mignogna has been on the show.
Well, our latest episode of Star Trek Continues features one of your own, Gigi Edgley.
Now, I have heard this.
From Farscape.
Oh, it's Gigi from Farscape.
She is absolutely wonderful in this episode. Oh my gosh, she's wonderful. And well, you know what, when I cast her, she said, do you want me to do an American accent? And I said, are you kidding? No. I love the Australian accent.
I threw that at it and then it ran away.
Listen, you better get to sick bay. Dr. McCoy give you a one-star.
Oh, so I'm fine. Really, I'm just a bit scared.
Plus, Star Trek is all about diversity, right? So, how cool would it be to have this Australian girl in the episode? So.
Well, this has been my thing. Where are all the Aussies in the canon shows?
Righto, mate. Righto.
Well, I know that in First Contact there, Picard's line was that Australia was the last to join the United Earth. Maybe we're holding out a bit of resentment. We're not joining that Starfleet.
You were waiting for a good deal. Just holding out for a better deal.
Well, fair enough too.
And you know.
See, I think the problem is you can't take a kangaroo into space. Maybe that was the problem.
Actually, I know it's not Australia, but we did have a Kiwi.
They don't count.
We had Daniel Logan, who was young Boba Fett, was in our second episode, and he was about as close as we came to a real full-blooded Aussie. But Gigi Edgley really knocked it out of the park. She made your country proud, I can promise you.
New Zealanders are to Australians what Canadians are to Americans. Those weird cousins north of the border.
And you know what's funny? What's funny is that in the episode, I actually wrote into the dialogue, Daniel Logan says something. He's at the helm. He's sitting in Chekhov's position. And he says something, and Kirk recognizes the accent, and Kirk looks at him and says, Australia? And he goes, New Zealand, sir. So clearly, Captain Kirk can't tell the difference between an Aussie and a Kiwi.
A category of guests that I'd love to bring back to the show are sci-fi alumni. Tim Russ, Walter Koenig, Nana Visitor, Connor Trenier, Dominic Keating. They've all joined me over the last 5 years, and I'm hoping to get back to the roots of the Trekzone Spotlight and bring some more actors onto the show.
There's a dimension beyond that which is known to man. A dimension as vast as space and timeless as infinity. It's the middle ground between shadow and truth, between science and ingenuity, and it lies somewhere out there. beyond strange new worlds and the spirit that defines humanity. It's a dimension of imagination where the adventure never ends and the Trekzone begins.
David Nichol himself, Richard Dean Anderson, thanks so much for your time. Australia's only astronaut, Dr. Andy Thomas.
When you make a film, you don't know which ones are going to be classics and which aren't.
Tim Russ, Connor Trenier, Grant Imahara, Larry Nemenchek.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Celebrating 5 years and 100 episodes. This is the Trekzone Spotlight.
Well, there you go. That's a look down memory lane of the last 5 years here on the Trekzone Spotlight, Trekzone.org interviews and Sci-Fi Weekly as well. A huge thanks to everyone that has supported me over the last 5 years, Liam Kyle especially, and Keely as well for very randomly coming on the show behind the camera on the road trips, as well as some of the crazy adventures we've had as well. Rest assured, I'm not going anywhere. I'm hoping for another 100 episodes. Episode 101, in fact, is coming up in a couple of days' time with Mr. Rod Roddenberry. I thought I'd bring him back to where the show all got started with Rod. So he's back chatting about life and the Mission Log podcast. Of course, if you are watching this after July 10, 2018, click the link in the video description or the card to jump straight over to that video. But for now, I'm Matt Miller. Thanks so much for watching these 100 episodes of the Trekzone Spotlight.